I wasn't supposed to hear it. My name whispered like a mistake behind a locked door. But I did. And that's the night I stopped being their daughter and started becoming their worst decision. I grew up in a house where silence meant survival, not peace, not love, just survival. My stepmother used to smile in public. Soft voice, gentle eyes, the kind of woman people called angel. But behind closed doors, she didn't need to raise her hand. She just knew where to press, with words. Look at you. Who would ever stay with you? You're lucky we even keep you here. And my father? He wasn't cruel. He was worse. He watched and said nothing. I learned something very young. Pain doesn't break you. It trains you. So I started listening more than I spoke, watching more than I reacted, memorizing every weakness, every pattern, every lie. By 16, I knew exactly how people worked, and more importantly, how to control what they thought they knew. But I didn't use it. Not yet. Because I had a bigger plan. At 19, I met him, a man they would never approve of, not rich, not powerful, just calm, and that made him dangerous. He didn't try to impress me. He didn't try to fix me. He just looked at me once and said, "You don't talk much, but your eyes scream everything." For the first time in my life, I felt seen. So, of course, they hated him. My stepmother laughed when I told her about him. That fake laugh. Sharp cold, like glass breaking slowly. Another mistake. You always choose men who can't give you anything. But I didn't argue. I just smiled. Because I wasn't playing their game anymore. I was building my own. Weeks later, I accidentally overheard something I was never supposed to hear. It was midnight. I went downstairs for water, and the lights in the living room were on. Their voices were low, urgent, afraid. "Are you sure she doesn't know?" my stepmother whispered. "She can't," my father replied. "She was too young." My heart stopped. Too young for what? I moved closer, slow, silent, breathing like a ghost. Then she said it, the sentence that changed everything. "We should have sent her away when we had the chance, like the others." The others. I didn't move. I didn't react. I just listened. Because panic makes you stupid, and I had spent my whole life training not to be. "She's starting to ask questions," my stepmother continued. "And if she finds out about the money, about the papers." Money? Papers? My father sighed. "We'll handle it after the wedding." Wedding? My stomach dropped. I wasn't even engaged. Then he said my name, slowly, carefully, like he was signing a contract. "We'll marry her off." Silence. To him? "No," he said, "to someone who won't ask questions." And then they both laughed. I walked back to my room, slow, calm, like nothing had happened. But inside, something cold had just awakened. They thought I was weak, easy to control, a problem to be removed. They had no idea I had already been studying them for years. And now, they had just given me the missing piece. Money, papers, others, secrets. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I made a list. Names, dates, documents I'd seen in passing, conversations I remembered but never understood. Everything suddenly connected. And for the first time, I wasn't reacting to their cruelty. I was preparing for their downfall. The next morning, I made breakfast, smiled at my stepmother, kissed my father on the cheek, played the perfect daughter. Because the most dangerous move is the one no one sees coming. Days passed, and I started noticing things I had ignored before. Locked drawers, phone calls that ended when I entered the room, old photos, missing people. The others. I searched the house when they weren't home, not randomly, strategically. People hide things in patterns, not places. And I knew their patterns. It took me 11 days to find the first proof. A folder hidden inside a box of old insurance papers because no one ever checks boring things. Inside were birth certificates. Not mine. Girls. 3 of them. Different names. Different dates. Same last name. My last name. My hands didn't shake. My breathing didn't change. Because I wasn't surprised anymore. I was confirming. Then I saw it. A document stamped and signed with my stepmother's name. Guardianship transfer. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to keep reading. Each girl had been placed under her care temporarily and then disappeared. No records after that. No trace. Like they never existed. Except on this paper. Except like me. I closed the file, put everything back exactly how I found it. Because knowledge is power, but only if no one knows you have it. That night, I sat in my room, staring at the ceiling, thinking, calculating. They weren't just planning to control me, they were planning to erase me, like the others. And that's when I made my decision. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to confront them. I was going to make them destroy themselves. Slowly. Beautifully. Starting with trust. The next morning, I walked up to my stepmother and said something I had never said before. I think you're right about him, I said softly. He's not good enough for me. Her eyes lit up. Because people don't question gifts they don't deserve. And that was my first move. Make her believe she had already won. From that moment, everything changed. I became exactly what they wanted, obedient, quiet, predictable. And that's why they never saw me coming. But the real game had just begun. Because I had found something else in that file. Something they never expected me to understand. A name. One name, circled in red. And a phone number written beside it. I stared at it for hours before finally picking up my phone. My finger hovered over the call button because I knew once I pressed it, there would be no going back. Either I would uncover the truth, or I would become the next girl in that file. My finger didn't shake when I pressed call, but my heartbeat did something strange. It slowed. Like my body already knew. This wasn't fear anymore. This was war. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a voice. Low, older. I was wondering when you'd call. I froze. I hadn't said a word. My throat tightened, but I didn't show it in my voice. Who is this? I asked. Silence, just for a second. Then he said my name, softly, Precisely. Not guessing. Not asking. Knowing. My grip tightened around the phone. How do you know me? I whispered. He exhaled, like he had been waiting years for this moment. Because, he said slowly, you're the only one who survived. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Survived what? I asked. But I already knew. The house you live in, he continued, it doesn't keep daughters. It collects them. My pulse spiked, but my voice stayed calm. Explain. Another pause. Not on the phone, he said. They listen. My eyes flicked toward the door. Locked. Silent. Meet me. I didn't answer immediately. Because this could be a trap. Or it could be the truth I needed. Send the location, I said. And I hung up first. Always hang up first. It gives you control. Seconds later, a message appeared. An address. Far. Old part of the city. A place no one visits unless they have a reason. I smiled. Good. That meant no witnesses. That afternoon, I told my stepmother I was going out with a friend. She didn't even question it, because I had spent days building her trust again. Soft voice, obedient tone, no resistance. People don't watch you when they think they've already broken you. And that's when you move. I arrived 20 minutes early. Never be on time. Be early. Observe. The building looked abandoned. Windows cracked. Paint peeling. Door slightly open. Too obvious. I didn't go inside. Instead, I walked past it, circled the block, watched. And there he was. Across the street, sitting in a parked car, watching the entrance. Not the building. The entrance. I smiled again. Smart. I walked straight to his car and opened the passenger door without asking. He didn't look surprised. Just relieved. You learn fast, he said. I learn what keeps me alive, I replied. For a moment, he just looked at me, like he was comparing me to someone else. You have her eyes, he murmured. My chest tightened. My mother? I asked. He nodded slowly. She tried to stop them. The words hit harder than I expected. Tried, I repeated. His silence answered everything. I turned my face toward the window, but my voice didn't break. Start talking. And he did, piece by piece, like opening a locked room. Years ago, my stepmother wasn't just a woman. She was part of something bigger. A network. Families that adopted girls temporarily, used their identities, their inheritance rights, their existence, for money. Fraud. Transfers. Disappearing assets. And when the girls became a risk, they disappeared. Clean. Silent. Gone. The others, I whispered. He nodded. You were never supposed to stay this long, he said. My stomach twisted. Then why am I still here? He looked at me carefully. Because something went wrong. I turned back to him. What kind of wrong? He hesitated. And that's when I knew this was the part he didn't want to say. My mother, I said quietly. He nodded again. She found out. The car felt colder. She tried to take you away, he continued, But your father stopped her. My jaw tightened. He protected me? The man's expression didn't change.
No.
A pause. He chose the money. Silence filled the car. Not heavy, not emotional, just clear. Like everything finally made sense. My father never ignored the cruelty because he didn't see it as cruelty. He saw it as business. And now? I asked. They're preparing your transfer, the man said. The marriage isn't real. Of course it wasn't. It's just paperwork, he continued. Once it's signed, you disappear. I leaned back in the seat,
Processing.
No panic, no fear, just calculation. Why are you helping me? I asked. For the first time, he looked uncomfortable. I owed your mother, he said, and I failed her. I studied his face. People lie in words, but not in regret. He wasn't lying. Then help me finish what she started, I said. His eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw something shift. Respect. What's your plan? He asked. I smiled.
Slow.
Controlled. Their biggest strength, I said quietly, is that no one suspects them. A pause. So we don't expose them. His brow furrowed. We make them expose themselves. Days later, I sat at the dinner table, smiling, listening to my stepmother talk about my future. A man I hadn't met yet, a wedding being rushed, documents for security. I nodded, agreed, obeyed, because every yes was pulling them deeper into my trap. That night, I sent one message to the man in the car. It's time. The next morning, I walked into the living room, holding a small envelope. My father looked up. What's that? I smiled sweetly. Something for you. He opened it casually, and then his face changed. Just slightly. But I saw it. Fear. Real fear. What is this? He asked. I tilted my head. Proof, I said softly. My stepmother froze. Proof of what? She snapped. I looked directly at her. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel small. Of everything you thought I'd never understand. Silence. Heavy. Sharp. My father stood up slowly. Where did you get this? I stepped back. Just enough. Wrong question, I said. His eyes narrowed. Then, what's the right one? I smiled again. The right question is, how much time do you think you have left? My words didn't echo. They settled, like dust after something breaks. My father didn't shout, didn't panic. That's how I knew he was dangerous. People who explode are easy to read. People who go quiet are already thinking 5 moves ahead. He folded the paper slowly, placed it back inside the envelope, and smiled. Not a father's smile, a businessman's. You've been busy, he said. My stepmother didn't smile. Her eyes were locked on me, sharp, calculating, like she was trying to peel me open layer by layer. How much do you know? She asked. I didn't answer, because information is currency, and I don't spend money when I can make others pay more. Instead, I walked past them, poured myself water, sat down calmly. Silence. Let them feel it. Let it grow. Because silence makes people uncomfortable, and uncomfortable people make mistakes. My father finally spoke again. What do you want? There it was. Not why, not how.
What?
He already knew. This wasn't emotional. This was negotiation. I looked up at him slowly. I want the truth.
A lie.
Not fully, but enough. Because the truth alone wasn't power. Control was. He studied me.
Long.
Careful. Then he sat down across from me. All right, he said. My stepmother turned sharply. You're just going to sit. One word.
And she did.
That told me everything I needed to know. He was the one in charge. Not her. Good. That meant if he fell, everything fell. He leaned forward slightly. You've seen documents, he said. Partial truths. I tilted my head. Then complete it. He exhaled. Your mother, he began, was never supposed to keep you. My fingers tightened slightly under the table, but my face didn't change. She broke the agreement, he continued, kept you longer than she should have. Agreement. So this wasn't just crime. It was systematic. And the others? I asked quietly.
He didn't hesitate.
They served their purpose.
Cold.
Simple. Final. My stepmother finally spoke again, voice low, almost defensive. You were lucky, she said. Lucky. I almost smiled. Lucky to not disappear like the others. Lucky to be raised inside the machine instead of erased by it. Yes, I whispered. I was lucky. Then I looked straight at her. That's why I'm still here. A flicker.
Fear. She saw it.
I wasn't like the others. I didn't break. I adapted. My father leaned back. So now we're at a crossroads, he said. You know enough to be a problem, but not enough to destroy us. I didn't react, because he was testing me, pushing, waiting to see if I would overplay my hand. I didn't. Instead, I placed my glass down gently. You're wrong. Silence. I know exactly enough. That's when the atmosphere shifted. Subtle, but real. Because confidence without proof is bluff. But calm confidence, after revealing just enough, that's threat. My stepmother stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous, she snapped. She's just a girl. Sit down. My voice cut through hers. Not loud, not aggressive, just certain. And for a second, she actually froze, then slowly sat back down. I saw it again. That fear. Not of me, but of what I might know.
Good.
Because fear is leverage. I leaned forward slightly. You said I don't know enough to destroy you. I paused, just long enough. But you don't know what I've already done. My father's eyes sharpened. What did you do? There it was again. Not denial. Assessment. Always calculating. I smiled softly. Insurance. My stepmother's fingers tightened on the table. What kind of insurance? She demanded. I didn't answer immediately. Let it stretch. Let it burn. Then, quietly, the kind that activates. If anything happens to me. Silence dropped like a blade. Heavy. Final. Because now, they weren't just dealing with a problem. They were dealing with a risk. And risks need to be controlled. Or eliminated. My father stood up slowly, walked around the table, and stopped behind my chair.
Close.
Too close. Most people would panic here. Feel threatened. But I stayed still. Because moving would mean reacting. And reacting means losing control. You're playing a dangerous game, he said quietly. I tilted my head slightly. So are you. A pause.
Long.
Heavy. Then he laughed. Soft at first, then louder. And that's when I knew he had decided something. All right, he said. He walked back to his seat. We do this your way. My stepmother turned sharply. You can't be serious. We adapt, he cut her off. Or we lose. Smart. Very smart. He wasn't trying to crush me anymore. He was trying to absorb me. Bring me into the system instead of fighting it. That's what powerful people do. They don't destroy threats. They turn them into assets. He looked at me again. You want the truth, he said. I'll give it to you. A pause. But in return, you become part of this. There it was. The real offer. Not survival.
Power.
My stepmother's breathing slowed, because now she understood. If I accepted, I wouldn't be their victim anymore. I would be their partner, equal, or worse, their replacement. I didn't answer immediately, because this was the moment, the turning point, revenge or control, destruction or domination. I looked at both of them, slowly, carefully. Then I smiled. The same soft smile they had seen my whole life. But this time, it meant something different. Okay, I said. I accept. My stepmother exhaled in relief. My father nodded once. But neither of them noticed, my hand tightening slightly under the table. Because they thought the game was over. They thought they had won. But the truth? I had just stepped inside the system, not to join it, but to collapse it from the inside. They thought I chose power, but I chose proximity. Because you can't destroy something from the outside. You have to sit at its center, learn its heartbeat, and then
stop it.
The next few days, I became someone new. Not louder, not stronger, just sharper. My father started including me in conversations. Not everything, just enough to test me. Numbers, names, transactions disguised as family assets. And I played my role perfectly. Curious, but not too curious. Smart, but never threatening. Because people don't hide things from someone they believe is already on their side. And slowly, they started trusting me. Not emotionally.
Strategically.
My stepmother stopped watching me like a risk and started watching me like an investment. That was my second move. Shift perception from problem to asset. And once that happens, doors open. A week later, my father handed me a file. "This one's yours," he said. I didn't open it immediately. "Mine?" I asked. He nodded. "Think of it as your first responsibility." I smiled softly, but inside, everything slowed, because I knew what this meant.
Trust. Or a test.
Or both. I opened the file. A girl. Temporary guardianship approved. Transfer scheduled. My chest tightened just for a second. Then it disappeared. Because emotions are dangerous in moments like this. I looked up at him. "And what exactly do you want me to do?" He leaned back, studying me. "Prepare her." 2 words. Cold. Simple. Final. My stepmother watched my face closely, waiting. Waiting to see if I would hesitate, if I would break. I didn't. Instead, I nodded slowly. Understood. That's when I saw it. The smallest shift in her eyes. Approval. That was my third move. Earn their confidence completely. But the real game? It started the moment I met her. She was sitting in the same room I used to sit in. Back straight, eyes tired, but still fighting. I saw myself in her, and she saw something in me. Hope. That was dangerous.
Hope makes people speak.
And speaking gets them noticed. So I sat down in front of her and said something cold. "Don't talk unless I ask you to." Her eyes widened.
Hurt.
Confusion.
Good.
Because I wasn't here to comfort her. I was here to save her. Without anyone noticing. Days passed, and I built her trust slowly. Not with kindness, but with consistency. Because broken people don't trust warmth. They trust patterns. I gave her small instructions, small freedoms, small signs. Enough for her to understand. I wasn't her enemy, but not enough for anyone else to notice. At the same time, I was building something else. Quietly, carefully. The insurance I had mentioned. Except now, it wasn't a bluff. It was real. Every document I touched, every name I heard, every transaction I saw, I copied,
Stored.
distributed. Not in one place. Never in one place. Because one mistake, one discovery, and everything would collapse. Too early. And I needed timing. Perfect timing. Then came the day. The transfer. The girl is dressed, prepared, documents signed. My stepmother was calm. My father was focused. Everything normal. Too normal. That's how systems survive. Routine. Predictability. Blind execution. And that's exactly what I used. Because when everything feels normal, no one looks for disruption. We were all in the living room. The same place. I once stood as a daughter.
Now.
I stood as something else. My father handed me the final paper. "Your signature," he said. My stepmother watched closely. The girl sat silently. eyes locked on me, waiting, trusting. And that's when I made my move.
Not fast.
Not dramatic.
Precise.
I took the pen, looked at the paper, then slowly placed it back on the table. I can't sign this, I said calmly. Silence. Instant. Sharp. My stepmother's voice cut through it. What did you just say? I didn't look at her. I said, I can't sign this. My father didn't react immediately. Because again, he was thinking, calculating. What changed? He asked. I finally looked at him and smiled. Nothing, I said softly. Everything just finished. Before they could respond, my phone vibrated.
Once.
Then again. And again. My father's phone followed. My stepmother's too. Messages. Notifications.
Calls.
All at once. Like something had just exploded. My father grabbed his phone, looked at the screen, and for the first time in my life, I saw him lose control. What did you do? He whispered. I leaned back slightly, completely calm. The insurance, I said. Because at that exact moment, every document, every name, every secret they had buried for years was no longer hidden. It wasn't just sent to one person. It wasn't just saved somewhere. It was released to people who couldn't ignore it, people who don't negotiate, people who don't forget. The system wasn't exposed slowly. It was shattered instantly. And they knew it. My stepmother stood up, panic finally breaking through her control. You ruined everything, she screamed. I looked at her quietly. No, I said. I finished it. The girl beside me started crying softly, not from fear, from relief. My father stepped closer. Rage, fear, disbelief, all fighting in his eyes. You think this saves you? He said. I held his gaze. It doesn't save me, I replied. It ends you. Sirens. Faint at first, then louder, closer. And in that moment, everything shifted. Not power. Not control. Endings. But the real twist? The real truth they never saw coming? I wasn't the only one playing, because as I stood there, watching everything collapse, my phone buzzed again. A message. From a number I didn't recognize. Just one sentence. You exposed them beautifully.
A pause.
But you missed who built them. My smile faded, just slightly, because suddenly, this wasn't the end. It was something else. Something bigger. Something I hadn't planned for. My phone was still in my hand, but suddenly, it felt heavier. Not because of fear, because of realization. You exposed them beautifully, but you missed who built them. Those words didn't scare me. They interested me. Because fear makes you react. Curiosity makes you think. And I don't survive by reacting. I survive by understanding. Sirens were louder now. Voices outside. Doors opening. Shouting. My stepmother was pacing, panic finally breaking her control. My father? He wasn't shouting. He was staring at me.
Long.
Quiet. And then he smiled. A small smile, but real. That message, he said slowly. You got it too. My chest didn't move, but something inside shifted. So he knew. Of course he knew. People like him never play one game. They play layers. What are you talking about? My stepmother snapped. But neither of us answered her. Because suddenly, we were no longer enemies. We were two players, realizing the board was bigger than we thought. The door burst open. Uniforms, voices,
Commands.
everything happened fast. Questions, phones taken, hands raised. My stepmother broke first, crying, shouting, denying. My father? Silent. He didn't fight. He didn't run. He just watched me. And as they took him away, he said one sentence. Not loud, not dramatic. Just enough for me to hear. You learned well. A pause. But not everything. And then he was gone. Hours later, everything was quiet. Too quiet. The house, empty. The girl I saved, taken somewhere safe. The files,
Gone.
the system.
Collapsed.
I should have felt something. Victory, relief, closure. But I didn't. Because that message was still inside my head. You missed who built them. So, I did what I always do. I went back to the beginning. Not emotionally.
Strategically.
Patterns.
Names.
Connections. I wasn't looking at my parents anymore. I was looking at what connected them. And that's when I saw it. Something small. Almost invisible. A signature. Not on one document. On all of them. Hidden in codes, legal formatting, transfer structures. Different names. Same pattern. Same hand. I sat back slowly and smiled. Because now, I wasn't guessing anymore. I was hunting. Days passed. Then weeks. Everything outside looked normal again. News cycles moved on. People forgot. That's how the world works. But I didn't forget. I refined.
Traced.
Followed. Until one night, I found it. A company.
Clean. Perfect.
Untouchable. Too clean. And behind it,
A name.
not famous, not public, but powerful. The kind of name that doesn't appear in headlines because it writes them. I stared at it for a long time. Then I whispered softly, "So you're the one." My phone buzzed. Same unknown number. Like it had been waiting. You found it. I didn't respond immediately. Because this time, I wasn't the one being tested. They were. Finally, I typed one line. Why tell me? The reply came instantly. Because... A pause. You're the only one who didn't break. I leaned back, eyes closed for a second. Not overwhelmed. Not afraid. Evaluating. Because this wasn't revenge anymore. This was recruitment. What do you want? I typed. This time, the delay was longer. Intentional. Measured. Then, meet me. I smiled. Of course. The same move. Different player. The address came through.
Far.
Isolated. Familiar pattern. But I didn't go immediately. Because I had learned something important. Never walk into a game without placing your own pieces first. So I prepared. Not weapons. Not escape routes. Information. Backups. Triggers. Insurance. Real insurance. The kind that doesn't just expose. It ends everything. Then I went. The place was empty. Of course it was. No guards. No cameras visible. Which meant they were there. Just unseen. I stepped inside.
Come.
Measured. And then I heard it. A voice. Behind me. You're exactly what I expected. I turned slowly, and for the first time, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not fear. Recognition. Because the man standing there wasn't unfamiliar. I had seen his work, his patterns, his system. He smiled slightly. You destroyed a network that took years to build. A pause. Without even knowing who you were really fighting. I tilted my head. And now I do. He stepped closer. Not threatening. Confident. Controlled. You think this is about your parents, he said quietly. It never was. Silence. Then I asked the only question that mattered. What is this about? He looked directly into my eyes and answered. Control. A pause. And you just proved you deserve it. I didn't smile. I didn't react. Because now I understood everything. The system, the layers,
The design.
My parents weren't the top. They weren't even close. They were tools. And I had just done something very dangerous. I had removed tools. Without permission. So what now? I asked calmly. He studied me for a long moment, then said, Now, you choose. A pause. Walk away. Or step in. Silence stretched. Heavy. Because this wasn't survival anymore. This wasn't revenge. This was power. Real power. The kind that doesn't scream. The kind that doesn't show. The kind that decides who disappears and who stays. I looked at him, then slightly past him, then back again. Calculating. Always calculating. Then finally, I smiled. The same soft smile that had fooled everyone before. But this time, it wasn't a mask. It was a decision. I don't walk away from games I understand, I said quietly. His smile deepened. Good, he replied. Because this one, a pause, never ends. And as I stood there, not as a victim, not as a survivor, but as something else entirely, I realized the truth. I didn't escape the system. I became part of it, but not at the bottom, not in the middle, right where decisions are made. And this time, no one would ever use me again, because now I was the one people whispered about, behind closed doors. And somewhere, in another house, another girl was learning the same lesson I did. Silence isn't weakness. It's preparation.